To the politics of all of this, joining me is the former chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood MP. Evening to you, Tobias. I mean, it's an interesting guest list. I think we understand that politicians and world leaders will be there. Elon Musk obviously is a tech man, so we kind of get it. But, you know, Rishi Sunak doing a sit-down, a one-to-one with Elon Musk, is that a good idea?
Yeah, no, I think this is really, really exciting. I mean, well done to the Prime Minister for putting this important conference together. As you were just talking about there, we're just beginning to appreciate the sheer scale of artificial intelligence, its benefits, but also the risks that are involved. There are no rules right now. Anybody can do whatever they like. And the big difference between a lot of comparisons with nuclear power, the creation of nuclear energy, and the fact that that was a double-edged sword with civilian use, able to keep the lights on, but also to create those terrible weapon systems as well. But in those days, it was just states that could create those weapons. The fact that Elon Musk is there is simply because it's now the commercial sector that has become so powerful, almost more powerful than countries themselves. So the fact that the Prime Minister is now raising these questions is, what are the moral and ethical guidelines that we should follow? Which organization is best placed to police this digital world that's developing in front of us? And indeed, what penalties might be imposed? Big questions indeed. I'm not sure we're going to solve them at Bletchley Park, but it's an important start, given really the dangers that are lying ahead and the pace of change that's taking place. Legislators, you introduced me as a politician. The legislators are very slow in understanding new technology and crafting the necessary rules and regulations as to how they work. Sometimes we leave it too late. Indeed, Facebook's been around for a couple decades now. We've only just now come out with the online harms bill to control how that facility is utilized. So well done to the Prime Minister, but there's a lot of work to do still.
What do you make of China being on the guest list? They're obviously a powerhouse, and one could reasonably assume they're quite ahead of the game in the AI world, so maybe it's as simple as that. But simultaneously, we know there's big question marks over China. I don't know how many questions have been asked in the House of Commons about Chinese spying, various kit devices. Don't use this gadget anymore because the Chinese might be listening in, except cameras in the street could be dubious, etc. It's a curious fit nonetheless, Tobias.
You're right to say that, and quite right to spell out some of the debates we've had in checking China and raising huge concerns about where China itself is leveraging this new digital world for its own benefits. I'm pleased that they were there because ultimately we have to create rules, international rules that every nation will follow. So I'm pleased that China is there. How long these rules will last, or until they are broken. I should say, when it comes to the area that I spend most of my time looking at, which is that of conflict and war and security and so on, it will be a game changer in the world, of war. War is about lethality, how and when individual military components or come together or orchestrated to maximize the concentration of force. And if you've got one mainframe, one machine, one artificial intelligence able to remove the human from not just operating those components of war with autonomous systems, but also the decision-making process. Indeed, your efficiency jumps exponentially, removing, if you like, the fog of war as well. Whoever harnesses that, first of all, will have huge strategic advantage. So a lot of questions in the domain of conflicts as to how unmanned systems, how autonomous machines will be operating, who's in charge of them, and how they're put to use.
Just one final point, Tobias. Is it possible, do you think, Rishi Sunak's actually auditioning for a job in Silicon Valley? Is that what all this tech stuff is about? We know that Nick Clegg did rather well out of it, senior politician, legged it to the hills over there, got himself a big, nice, tasty gig with Facebook. Maybe Rishi's considering the same thing over there at Twitter or X.
I can understand why you raised the question. I see Nick Clegg is back in town, actually, representing his company. I don't agree with that. It was your first conversation you had was interesting too. It raises the question about what Britain is now good at. What do we do in this fast-changing world with huge competition coming from in all facets of life from other parts of the world. For me, I want to see the UK be a high-tech superpower. Think of the things that we're good at. Pharma, life sciences, fintech, creative industries, aerospace, satellite industry. It's all to do with advanced technology. So it actually sits quite well with the Prime Minister, with Britain at Bletchley Park, this most famous of places, actually leading the world. And if I can underline also, after a few years, the last few years, which have been pretty bumpy for Conservative politics particularly, to get back to number 10 statecraft, to looking at some of the challenges and problems around the world. That's what Britain is actually good at. That's what we have done over the last century or so. And I'm really pleased that we're now getting back to this, given the rather bumpy political climate we've had in the last 2 or 3 years.
Listen, always a pleasure. Tobias, thank you. Conservative MP Tobias Ellwood with us.